For 26 years, no one questioned evidence box BX-115. It sat untouched inside a climate-controlled federal archive. Its security seal remained unbroken. Its chain of custody was perfect. Every document confirmed the same fact. Inside that box was the evidence that convicted one of America's most notorious killers. The case had become a textbook example taught in police academies across the country. Detectives called it flawless. Prosecutors called it historic. Families of the victims finally found peace. Everything about the investigation seemed complete. Until a routine inventory changed everything. On a rainy Monday morning, archivist Helen Brooks scanned the barcode attached to BX-114. The computer rejected it. She scanned it again. Evidence verification required. That message had never appeared before. Minutes later, 2 federal supervisors arrived. The original paperwork was brought from storage. Every signature matched. Every seal number matched. Nothing appeared unusual. Protocol required one final inspection. The metal box was placed under bright white lights inside the archive examination room. 3 witnesses signed the inspection log. A forensic photographer documented every angle. The original security seal remained perfectly intact. No scratches. No damage. No indication anyone had ever opened it. Supervisor Daniel Ross carefully cut the seal. Silence filled the room. Everyone expected to see the murder weapon. Instead, the box was empty. No weapon. No fingerprints. No evidence bags. No documents. Nothing. For nearly 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Then someone whispered. "That's impossible." Washington, D.C. 8:17 p.m. Rain washed over the empty streets, as Ethan Cross unlocked the door to an old brick building hidden between 2 abandoned warehouses. There was no sign outside. No company logo. No office hours. Just a rusted brass plate that read, "Cross Investigations." The office looked nothing like a detective agency. Dust-covered filing cabinets stretched across one wall. Hundreds of archive boxes filled metal shelves. A large wooden table stood beneath a single hanging lamp. Pinned to the wall were dozens of photographs connected by thin black strings. Each one represented a case that never truly made sense. Some were officially solved. Others had simply disappeared from public memory. Ethan tossed his keys onto the desk. He removed his dark tactical jacket, and poured himself a cup of black coffee. Another quiet evening. Another forgotten case waiting to be reviewed. Then someone knocked. 3 slow knocks. Exactly the same rhythm. Knock. 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 Ethan frowned. Nobody knew this address. He opened the door. The hallway was empty. No footsteps. No elevator sounds. Only rain echoing through the building. Then he noticed it. A black envelope resting perfectly in the center of the welcome mat. No postage. No fingerprints. No handwriting. Only one silver stamp. Archive. Ethan's expression changed immediately. Someone wanted him to find this. Not mail it. Find it. He carefully carried the envelope inside. Before touching it again, he slipped on a pair of black forensic gloves. Old habits never disappeared. He photographed the envelope. Front. Back. Edges. Seal. Nothing. No fibers. No fingerprints. No return address. The paper itself felt unusually thick. Almost handmade. He slid a thin knife beneath the wax seal. Inside were only 3 items. A faded crime scene photograph. A folded evidence inventory sheet. And a small black card. Printed in white letters. Archive 001. No signature. No explanation. Nothing else. Ethan unfolded the photograph. His eyes narrowed. It showed a metal evidence box sitting beneath bright laboratory lights. Its lid stood open. Completely empty. He flipped the photo over. On the back, someone had typed a single sentence. The truth disappeared long before the evidence did. Silence filled the room. Ethan reached for his laptop. Within seconds, he searched every federal database still available through his old credentials. Nothing. No archive project. No archive division. No BX-115. Nothing. Almost as if the case had never existed. That made him even more interested. His phone vibrated. Claire Monroe. Ethan, are you watching the news? No. You should. He turned on the television. Breaking news. Federal Archive Facility. Restricted investigation. No cameras allowed inside. A reporter stood outside behind yellow tape. We've confirmed that federal authorities have locked down the National Evidence Repository after what officials are calling an administrative irregularity. Administrative irregularity. Ethan almost laughed. Governments never used simple words unless something was much worse. The reporter continued. Sources inside the building claim an important piece of historical evidence cannot currently be accounted for. Cannot be accounted for. Not stolen. Not missing. Not destroyed. Very carefully chosen words. Ethan looked back at the photograph. Whoever sent this envelope already knew what had happened. Hours before the media. Hours before the public. That meant one thing. Someone inside the investigation wanted him involved. Or someone inside wanted him dead. He picked up the black card again. Archive 001. Not Case 1. Archive 1. Which implied there were more. Many more. He opened a brand new notebook. Across the first page he wrote, "The Archive." Then underneath it, Question 1. Who sent the envelope? A second line followed. Question 2. How can an empty evidence box convict a murderer? Outside. The rain grew heavier. Across the street, a black sedan remained parked with its headlights off. Inside, someone watched Ethan through binoculars. The engine never started. The lights never came on. After nearly 20 minutes, the car quietly disappeared into the night. Ethan never noticed. But someone had already begun watching the investigator. The following morning, at exactly 7:42 a.m., Ethan Cross parked outside the National Evidence Repository. The building looked more like a military bunker than an archive. No windows. Concrete walls. 3 security checkpoints. Armed federal officers guarded every entrance. The entire facility had been placed under temporary lockdown. Yellow evidence tape stretched across the main entrance. News vans lined the opposite side of the street. Reporters waited for someone, anyone, to speak. Nobody did. Ethan adjusted his jacket and walked toward the checkpoint. A young security officer stepped into his path. "Facility is closed." Ethan nodded. "I know. You'll have to leave." Instead of arguing, Ethan quietly removed an old leather wallet from his pocket. Inside was a retired federal investigator credential. Expired. But still recognizable. The officer looked at it. Then looked back at Ethan. Recognition flickered across his face. "I've heard your name. I'd rather you hadn't." The officer hesitated. "You solved the Harbor 8 case." "I finished someone else's investigation." A voice interrupted them. "Let him through." Both men turned. Deputy Director Amelia Grant approached with 2 federal agents. She looked exhausted. She hadn't slept. "You still attract trouble, Cross." Ethan smiled faintly. "I usually arrive after it starts." Grant lowered her voice. "You have exactly 15 minutes. I only need 5. The archive felt strangely silent. Hundreds of thousands of evidence boxes filled endless steel shelves. Everything was perfectly organized. Perfectly labeled. Perfectly preserved. Except one shelf. Shelf B11. A rectangular gap stood where BX-115 had rested for over 2 decades. The empty evidence box now sat alone beneath forensic lights. Every surface had already been examined. No usable fingerprints. No DNA. No fibers.
Nothing. Almost. Too clean. Ethan crouched beside the table. He didn't touch the box. He simply looked. For nearly a minute. Grant folded her arms. "You see something? Maybe. You haven't even opened it." "I don't need to." She frowned. Ethan pointed toward the hinges. "They've never been replaced." So the lid has opened thousands of times over 26 years. Grant nodded. "Probably." "No." Ethan looked directly at her. "This lid has barely moved." Silence. "The paint inside the hinge is intact." He leaned closer. "If this box contained heavy evidence bags, the hinges would show microscopic wear." He looked back at Grant. "They don't." One of the forensic technicians stepped forward. "We already tested the hinges." "You tested for fingerprints." Ethan replied calmly. "I asked a different question." The technician said nothing. Grant's expression changed. "You think?" "I think this box spent 26 years pretending to be evidence storage." He slowly turned the box upside down. A tiny white sticker remained attached underneath. Almost invisible. Printed in faded black ink. "Property Division." Not Evidence Division. Grant stared at it. "That shouldn't be there." "No, it shouldn't." Ethan smiled for the first time. Someone switched the box. Minutes later, the original archive inventory records arrived. Every transfer. Every signature. Every movement. BX-114 had supposedly changed storage locations 11 different times. Ethan spread the paperwork across the table. Then stopped. One transfer form looked different. Different typewriter. Different ink. Different paper. 26 years ago. Someone had inserted a fake transfer record. Perfect enough to fool everyone. Except One detail. The paper had been manufactured 6 years after the form was supposedly signed. Grant whispered, "My God." The entire chain of custody was rewritten. A loud voice echoed across the archive. "Director." One of the technicians hurried toward them carrying another document. "We found something." He handed Grant a maintenance log. 3 weeks before the evidence inspection, someone had requested access to shelf B11. Authorization code. Approved. Purpose. Routine inventory verification. Requested by. The name had been blacked out. Not crossed out. Not blurred. Professionally removed. Someone didn't just erase the identity. They expected someone to look. Ethan traced a finger across the missing name. Whoever did this still has access. Grant looked around the enormous archive. Thousands of shelves. Hundreds of employees. One hidden replacement. One missing evidence box. One erased identity. For the first time, she realized this wasn't a forgotten mistake. Someone inside the archive had been protecting a lie. For 26 years. Outside the archive, a maintenance worker quietly loaded an empty cardboard box into a white service van. No one paid attention. He drove away without being stopped. Hidden beneath the false floor of the van lay the real BX-115. Still sealed. Still unopened. The white maintenance van disappeared into the morning traffic. No patrol car followed it. No security camera flagged it. To everyone watching, it was just another maintenance vehicle leaving a government building. But Ethan couldn't shake a feeling. Something was wrong. Not with the box. With the timing. Inside the archive, Deputy Director Amelia Grant stood before a digital floor map. Every employee who entered shelf B11 over the last 6 months is already being questioned. Ethan shook his head. "You're asking the wrong question." Grant looked up. "What should I be asking?" "Not who entered." He pointed toward the maintenance records. "Who wanted everyone to believe they entered?" Silence filled the room. The technicians exchanged nervous glances. Ethan walked toward the massive archive map. Thousands of shelves stretched across the screen. He traced a line with his finger. B11 isn't the destination. Grant frowned. "It's the distraction." One of the technicians interrupted. "Mr. Cross, you should see this." They entered the surveillance room. 48 monitors covered an entire wall. Every hallway, every storage aisle, every entrance. Everything had been recorded. Except one camera. Camera 47. Its feed had frozen. Exactly 8 minutes before BX-114 was opened. The image showed an empty hallway. Then nothing. No error. No warning. Just one frozen frame. The technician spoke quietly. "We assumed it was a software glitch." Ethan leaned closer. "No." He pointed toward the digital timestamp. "It isn't frozen." "What?" "The clock is moving." Everyone stared. The seconds continued counting. But the picture never changed. Someone had replaced live video with a still image. Professional. Almost impossible to notice. Grant whispered. "They blinded the archive." Ethan asked one question. "Where does camera 47 point?" The technician enlarged the blueprint. Everyone expected B11. Instead, the camera overlooked the archive loading dock, the exact exit used by maintenance vehicles. Grant's eyes widened. The van. Ethan was already walking. 20 minutes later, federal agents stopped every government maintenance vehicle within a 20-mile radius. 34 vans. Nothing. 35. Nothing. 36. Empty. The white van had vanished. Back inside the archive, Claire Monroe arrived carrying a stack of newspaper archives. She dropped them onto Ethan's desk. "I think you'll want to see these." The oldest newspaper dated back 27 years. Headline: Prosecutor Daniel Harlow murdered. The article described the investigation, the arrest, the trial. Everything matched official records. Until Ethan noticed something strange. He picked up the second newspaper. Same date, different edition, different headline. This version mentioned a second evidence box. BX-115. He looked up. "Where did you get this?" Claire answered quietly. Small-town library. It was never digitized. Ethan searched the Federal Archive database. BX-115. Did not exist. Not deleted. Not classified. Simply, never existed. Yet an original newspaper had printed its number. Claire slowly turned another page. This gets worse. An old crime scene photograph showed investigators carrying 2 evidence boxes. BX-114. BX-115. One entered history. The other disappeared. Ethan stared at the photograph. Someone hadn't erased one piece of evidence. They erased an entire second investigation. Late that night, Ethan returned to his office. The rain had finally stopped. He pinned both photographs onto the investigation wall. BX-114. BX-115. A red string connected them. Then another. Then another. Every answer created 3 new questions. His phone rang. Unknown number. He answered. Silence. For nearly 5 seconds. Then, a distorted voice spoke. Stop looking for box 115. Click. The line went dead. No threats. No shouting. Just one sentence. As if someone was giving him a chance to walk away. Ethan looked around the empty office. For the first time since opening the black envelope, he realized something chilling. This wasn't a cold case anymore. Someone was following his investigation. In real time. Across the city. Inside a dimly lit room. A man wearing black leather gloves watched Ethan's office through a long-range camera. Without speaking, he opened another black envelope, carefully placed a photograph inside, stamped it. Archive 002. He smiled, very slightly, then turned off the light. The phone call lasted only 6 seconds. Yet Ethan replayed it 12 times. Not because of the words. Because of the silence. There was no background traffic. No wind. No office noise. Only the faint electrical hum of fluorescent lights. Someone had called from inside a large building. Maybe underground. Maybe somewhere with reinforced concrete walls. He isolated the audio. Amplified the background frequencies. Nothing. Professional. Whoever made that call knew how to disappear. The next morning, Claire Monroe arrived carrying 2 coffees and a cardboard archive tube. I didn't sleep, she admitted. I can tell. I kept thinking about BX-115. She unrolled an original architectural blueprint across Ethan's desk. The archive building wasn't always this size. Ethan leaned over the plans. The oldest section dated back to 1983. A renovation had been completed in 1997, 1 year before the Harlow murder. Another renovation followed in 2001. Something caught his eye. Between Storage Wing B and the loading dock, there was a narrow service corridor. But on the newest blueprint, it no longer existed. Claire looked at him. It wasn't demolished. It was hidden. 3 hours later, Deputy Director Amelia Grant reluctantly agreed to let Ethan inspect the sealed maintenance area. It hasn't been opened in 24 years. Perfect. Federal locksmiths cut through layers of rusted steel. The heavy door groaned open. A wave of stale air rolled into the hallway. Dust covered every surface. Old fluorescent fixtures hung lifeless from the ceiling. It looked untouched. Until Ethan lowered his flashlight. Fresh footprints. One set. Deep. Recent. Grant froze. Someone's been down here. The dust told the story. One person had entered. One person had left. Less than 48 hours earlier. The corridor ended at another steel door. Unlike the first, this one looked new. Modern lock. Fresh paint. No government markings. Ethan carefully examined the frame. Tiny scratches surrounded the keyhole. It had been opened frequently. Grant whispered. This room doesn't exist on any blueprint. It exists. Ethan replied. Someone just removed it from the paperwork. The door opened. Inside, there were no shelves. No evidence. No files. Just a single wooden table. One chair. A desk lamp. And a large industrial shredder. The waste container beneath it was empty. Too empty. The machine had been cleaned. Professionally. Ethan looked around. The room felt staged. almost like someone wanted investigators to find it. Then he noticed something reflecting beneath the table. A brass key, attached to a faded paper tag. BX-115. Claire stared. It wasn't destroyed. It was moved. Back at Ethan's office, Noah Reed joined the investigation through a secure video call. He had spent the day searching government procurement records. I found something. His screen filled with contracts. 3 weeks before the archive inspection, someone purchased 12 industrial evidence boxes. Grant frowned. 12. Noah nodded. They're identical to BX-114. Ethan immediately understood. If there are 12 identical boxes, any one of them can become BX-114. Noah zoomed into another document. The buyer used a shell company. Company name: Black Ridge Logistics. Registered 6 months earlier. No employees. No office. No tax records. A company created only to buy evidence boxes. Silence filled the room. Claire finally spoke. This was planned. For years. No, Ethan answered. For decades. That evening, Ethan returned alone to the abandoned maintenance corridor. Something still bothered him. The hidden room. The empty shredder. The spotless floor. It looked too clean. He turned off his flashlight. Complete darkness. Then, he noticed it. A faint red light, blinking once every 5 seconds. Hidden inside an old ventilation grate. A tiny wireless camera. Still recording. Still transmitting. Someone was watching anyone who entered the room. Ethan slowly looked directly into the lens. Without saying a word, he smiled. Then, he reached up and removed the camera. Hundreds of miles away, inside a dark control room, 12 surveillance screens suddenly went black. One man quietly removed his headphones. Another looked toward him. He found camera 12. The first man nodded. Earlier than expected. What now? He opened a locked metal cabinet. Inside rested dozens of identical black envelopes, each marked with a different archive number. He selected one. Archive 003. Then calmly replied, "Now, we move to phase 2. Silence. Then Ethan asked the question no one else had considered. If BX-114 was empty, where did the real evidence go? At that exact moment, Deputy Director Amelia Grant called. "Ethan, we found BX-115. His heartbeat stopped. Where? It wasn't in the archive. It was inside Harlow's old courthouse, hidden behind a false wall. 30 minutes later, the courthouse basement had become an active crime scene. The false wall had been opened only minutes before Ethan arrived. Behind it stood a narrow concrete chamber. Inside, a single evidence shelf. One box, covered in decades of dust. BX-115. Unlike BX-114, its seal was broken very carefully years ago. Forensic technicians photographed every angle. No one touched it. Grant looked toward Ethan. "You open it." He slowly pulled on fresh gloves. The room fell silent. The lid creaked open. Inside, not a murder weapon, not fingerprints, not blood samples. Only documents. Hundreds of pages. Original witness interviews, crime scene diagrams, laboratory reports. Everything the court had never seen. Claire picked up the first report. Her face turned pale. This changes everything. The original forensic report concluded that Daniel Harlow had been killed nearly 6 hours earlier than prosecutors claimed. That meant the convicted killer had been in another state, verified, documented, impossible to ignore. The man sentenced for murder could not have committed the crime. No one spoke. 26 years. An innocent man. A flawless conviction. Built on evidence that never existed. Grant slowly closed the file. Someone rewrote an entire murder investigation. Ethan shook his head. No. They rewrote history. Suddenly, the archive documents stopped. The final folder contained only one sheet of paper, typed, no signature, no date. Only one sentence. The tiny surveillance camera rested in Ethan Cross's hand. It weighed almost nothing. Military grade. Encrypted transmitter. No serial number. No manufacturer. No fingerprints. Someone had planned every detail. He placed the camera into an evidence bag. Then he looked around the hidden room one last time. Something still felt incomplete. People don't build secret rooms just to watch them. They build them to protect something. Or to hide it. Back in his office, Noah Reed had already begun analyzing the camera's internal memory. It's encrypted, Noah said. But not impossible. Minutes passed in silence. Then Noah suddenly stopped typing. You need to see this. The first image appeared on Ethan's monitor. A still frame. The hidden room. Empty. Timestamp. 3 weeks earlier. Then another frame. A maintenance worker entered carrying BX-115. He placed it on the table. A second man entered. His face remained hidden beneath a black baseball cap. The maintenance worker left. The second man stood perfectly still for almost 30 seconds. Then, he opened BX-115. It had been empty. Even then, Ethan leaned closer. Play the next frame. The mysterious man removed a sealed evidence envelope from his coat. Not from the box. From his coat. He placed it inside BX-115. Only for a few seconds. He photographed it. Then removed it again. Finally, he closed the empty box. Noah stared at the screen. They wanted photographs. Claire whispered. Not evidence. Ethan finished the thought. They wanted everyone to believe evidence existed. Silence. Then Ethan asked the question no one else had considered. If BX-114 was empty, where did the real evidence go? At that exact moment, Deputy Director Amelia Grant called. Ethan, we found BX-115. His heartbeat stopped. Where? It wasn't in the archive. It was inside Harlow's old courthouse. Hidden behind a false wall. 30 minutes later, the courthouse basement had become an active crime scene. The false wall had been opened only minutes before Ethan arrived. Behind it stood a narrow concrete chamber. Inside, a single evidence shelf. One box, covered in decades of dust. BX-115. Unlike BX-114, its seal was broken very carefully years ago. Forensic technicians photographed every angle. No one touched it. Grant looked toward Ethan. You open it. He slowly pulled on fresh gloves. The room fell silent. The lid creaked open. Inside, not a murder weapon, not fingerprints, not blood samples. Only documents. Hundreds of pages. Original witness interviews, crime scene diagrams, laboratory reports. Everything the court had never seen. Claire picked up the first report. Her face turned pale. This changes everything. The original forensic report concluded that Daniel Harlow had been killed nearly 6 hours earlier than prosecutors claimed. That meant the convicted killer had been in another state, verified, documented, impossible to ignore. The man sentenced for murder could not have committed the crime. No one spoke. 26 years. An innocent man. A flawless conviction. Built on evidence that never existed. Grant slowly closed the file. Someone rewrote an entire murder investigation. Ethan shook his head. No. They rewrote history. Suddenly, the archive documents stopped. The final folder contained only one sheet of paper, typed no signature, no date. Only one sentence. If you found BX-115, you're already too late. Behind the paper lay a black archive card, stamped in silver. Archive 002. On the reverse side. Coordinates. No explanation. No address. Only latitude and longitude. Claire looked at Ethan. What is it? He entered the coordinates into his laptop. Satellite imagery appeared. An abandoned military communication station. Closed in 1994. Officially demolished. Except, it was still standing. Epilogue. Later that night, Ethan returned to his office. The investigation wall had doubled in size. BX-114, BX-115, Black Ridge Logistics. Camera 12. The hidden room. Each clue connected by black string. He carefully pinned the Archive 002 card at the center, then stepped back. Someone had spent decades building this puzzle, piece by piece, case by case, not to hide the truth, but to lead him toward it. For the first time, Ethan realized something terrifying. He hadn't been chosen because he was the best investigator. He had been chosen because someone already knew how every one of his investigations would end.